Okay, let's go ahead and focus on the lower detail of the floor and walls. The first thing that we need to do is see how the building is attached. Over here, the 2x8 treated sill plate rests right on top of our cinder block or concrete blocks. Now, the left edge of it is touching this outside line. What the outside line actually is the sheathing layer up here of our wall, our 1/2 inch OSB sheathing. Everything then shares that inner edge of that sheathing. That's where our insulated rim joist starts, and then our floor truss begins. It's even where our 3/4 inch plywood floor sheathing goes and stops, as well as where our 2x6 sole plate is. And then on the other side of that, we have our 1/2 inch gypsum board up here for the wall. Everything stems off of this 1/2 inch OSB sheathing. So what I really want to do is take this wall here and I want to offset it inward by 1/2 of an inch. Now it's that I'm going to be extending all the way down to the top of my concrete block, which is this line down here. Right. I want to then trim this section out. And if I'm paying special attention, my outside edge of my concrete block does not continue up. That's going to be the edge of the 2x8. I don't want to extend that, I want to trim that. The edge of the 2x8. And so that's going to be a little bit different as we start there. A 2x8 is 1.5 inches by 7.25 inch. So we want to draw this thing over 7.25 tab 1.5, and then we want to put an X inside of it. Anytime that we are showing dimensional lumber, stuff that is not the right size, right? Not a 2x8, but a 1.5 by 7.25. Right? We want to show that it is dimensional by actually just drawing that little X in there. So I'm going to move that into this bottom corner over here. And it's going to be off and inset just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and extend my floor joist to come over and touch it. Next, I want to draw my insulated rim joist, this part here. Now, it tells me that it's 3 inches thick. What I know is that it's going to be made up of 2 boards and then a sandwich of like thick foam insulation. And those boards are going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. Inside of it, where that little diagonal crisscross hatch is, we're going to have our sandwiched foam. So I'm going to first offset this line here in by 3 inches. And I'm going to trim it to where it doesn't extend up or down. It's just inside of here. I'm going to offset it back inside by 3/4 of an inch. Oh, not 375. That's quite a bit. .75. And then I'm going to offset it over another 1.5 inches. Right, and what that'll do, that'll give me another 3/4 of an inch left over. If we want to be super fancy, we can go ahead and draw ourselves in a little X. Let's go ahead and draw that with our polar tracking set at 45 degrees. We can draw an X in there. Then we can take that and just copy it down so we get our crosshatch. All right, don't worry about the last one. We know that it doesn't hit exactly, but that's fine. All right, one thing that we're gonna have to do though is repeat all of that. We didn't offset down for our plywood floor sheathing. So I'm going to offset this one here down by 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to then take these lines, these little cross hatches that we just created, since I don't want to redraw them, and I'm going to move them down to that level. I'll trim off this line over here, and then we can just trim up our crosshatch underneath. All right, so now our floor truss sits inside of this area. It tells me that my floor truss is a 16-inch wood floor truss. Well, they're made out of 2x members, and we're looking at them on edge. So each of those members that we have are only going to be 1.5 inches thick. So I'm going to offset down by 1.5. I'm going to offset in by 1.5. I'm going to offset up by 1.5. And then I'm going to extend and trim my lines to where it fits inside of my rim joist. I need to trim this one, that one. And then get rid of this side. All right, the diagonal ones are going to be similar to our roof truss. We're going to draw those though on 45-degree increments. So I'm going to draw my first one out. I'm actually going to draw my second one down as well. These would be the center lines. When I offset them, I'm going to offset them out half of 1.5, or only 3/4, so 0.75 each way. The reason I'm doing both is I can copy or mirror based on those lines, the reference lines. All right, if I had another one coming, it would touch this point here exactly. So if I took this one here and I copied it from that inner endpoint, I can paste it on that bottom endpoint, do some nice trims. Not that one. There we go. And then I can get my third one extending on over. All right. I want you to go up, down, and back up. All right. On the interior side of this wall, I need to offset again a line coming in 1/2 of an inch for our gypsum board. And then inside of this little cavity is where my 2x6 should reside. So I'm going to draw another rectangle. I'm going to draw it over 5.5 inches and up 1.5 inches. Because it's dimensional lumber, draw an X inside of it. And if everything is correct, it should fit snugly just inside of our wall cavity, which it does. So we're not going to draw in our insulation just yet. We need to focus on our anchor bolt. Anchor bolts, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, this will actually be the one we're drawing here. Anchor bolts are measured based on the diameter of the bolt, so 1/2 inch, by the length of the bolt from the bottom of the L all the way up to the top of the threads. So this one here is going to go in 10 inches into our concrete block. Now we're going to backfill or pour concrete, cement, down in through the cavity of our concrete block. And then it's going to harden around this bolt. And because of that L, it won't be able to be pulled up and out of that casting. And then we're going to put the washer and nut on top of our board, and then our, sill plate will be held in place on top of that concrete block. What that allows us to do is use this as a nailer to where we can then nail these boards into that wood. You can't nail into concrete. It doesn't hold that well. It just get ripped right on out. And so we can then nail all of our wood joist members together, and they'll be bolted down with our anchor bolt to our concrete foundation. Now, they're going to go in the layer G-delt medium, or G-detail medium. Right. And so what I want you to do is draw yourself a vertical line 10 inches long, and then another line coming out to the right 2 inches. Because we know that our bolt is going to be 1/2 inch thick, I want to offset these two lines up and to the right by 1/2 of an inch. Okay, we can then go ahead and close off the top and edge. and we're going to fillet these corners. Now they are rounded, they are not filleted to a hard edge. Whenever you bend metal, the tightest radius, so the inside radius, can only be the thickness of the metal itself. Otherwise it would bind on itself and not, you get these pinch marks. And so what we want to do is fillet, so F enter, with a radius, R enter, of 0.5 on the inside. Now because it's uniform thickness, I could either offset this one over by 1/2 inch, or if I thought about it, if I increase the radius of a circle by 1/2 inch, well then my new fillet radius would just be 1 inch. All right, the washer and nut are simply just going to be drawn in elevation. And so we're going to give ourselves a nice little rectangle. It'll be 1.5 inch wide washer, so 1.5 tab, and it'll be 3/8 of an inch thick. 3/8. I'm sorry, that's how thick the nut is. This will be 3/16. So just grab this endpoint, move it down to the midpoint. We'll be okay. All right, for our nut will be 7/8 wide, so 7 divided by 8 by that 3/8 tall. Right, and we can just move this one here from the midpoint to the midpoint of our washer. Now we're going to be threading this over our bolt. Right now we could just move it to the top midpoint, and then we'll just move it down. Let's just say that it threads on for 3/4 of an inch. So we can then just move it down by 3/4 of an inch. I grabbed my top line on accident. I want to go ahead and put that back up. All right, simple as that. We're going to move this. The move point will be the bottom middle of the washer, and that's going to go onto the top middle of our board. Now it's intersecting this rim joist, which is okay. We'll be able to, in real life, just move it over a little bit. That'll be just fine. Since we can see that that's green because it's in elevation, another thing that's going to be in elevation is our actual entire floor truss. So we're going to want to move those lines by changing their properties over to our G-delt medium as well. Okay, from here, yeah, we can leave it just like that. Before we move on up, we can draw our fancy little pieces of concrete block, right? An actual cinder block is not exactly 8 inches tall. It is 7 5/8 of an inch tall. And what that does is it leaves us 3/8 of an inch for a mortar bed. And so I want you just to take these lines here and copy them up, straight up by 3/8 of an inch. We're also going to need one down here on the bottom. But if we copied that thing up or offset it up, it would have been an entire rectangle. So it's going to take a little bit more extra work to get that mortar bed for our concrete block. All right, that concludes the lower section of our rim joist.